Hello.
This is Darina
and Deanna
with Bledsoe Empower. Welcome back to our podcast, Empower El Mundo. We are your former collegiate athletes, now trained mental health counselors.
Yes, on this podcast, you can expect to hear about all things total wellness. That is going to include physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual connections. So make sure to tune in every single week because we'll be here.
And we're on all social media platforms. So make sure you follow us and subscribe to Empower El Mundo. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to
Empower Up podcast.
Season número dos.
For any of our Telemundo watchers,
Univision.
you know exactly what that is.
You get it.
You guys, it's been a while.
We're so excited to be back. We have a lot of cool stuff to catch up on and chat about.
Yes. If you guys haven't seen yet, which I hope you guys have, on our social medias at Empower El Mundo, you guys, we are dropping a product. It's a journal. It's called Empowered as Fuck Journal.
Ooh.
It's incredible. If you are a woman, it's definitely made for you. If you have a daughter, if you have a mom, if you have an auntie, if you got a cousin or a best friend, it's made for them too. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, go to our Instagram. The link is in the bio for you to pre-order. All shipments go out December 5th. So honestly, it's a great gift for Christmas and really for yourself. You know what I mean? Because like you're first.
Ooh, that was nicely done. Tap in to the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021. Get this journal empowered as fuck because that's all we are about. Okay.
Yes.
My name is Darina.
I'm Deanna.
And we are Bledsoe Empower. We're so happy to be back. Today we're going to be focusing on relationships, the ships, situationships, friends with benefits ships,
The Bennies.
the bennies.
Also known as. So let's get into it. Love and relationships and also the lack thereof. How do you identify a romantic relationship? Like, what does that mean?
If anything, it's so different now in 2020. You ask people who are, in their 50s and 60s what a relationship looks like, and you hear pretty traditional roles. The man works, the woman is at home, you have kids, you grow old together, you get married before kids, right? And nowadays, relationships look completely different, mostly because of the inclusion of social media, right? The ease of the ships has just...
It changes it.
It changes it.
It changes what a traditional relationship looks like.
Mhm.
And, especially for us and also other millennials, it's different. The rules and the regulations are not the same as what our parents went through.
Right, yeah.
For example, Doreen and I, our parents, we're sisters, our parents have the most amazing love story,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like it's
Ugh.
like a love story that you remember it and it's like there's no woes that come with it. Essentially, our dad was military. He was stationed out in Spain many, many moons ago. He went to a club. My mom happened to be at the club. She didn't speak any English. My dad didn't speak any Spanish. He started pulling on her hair. She was making fun of his feet because he wears a size 17. And that's how it started. They started to flirt. 1 year later, they got married in Spain, and they moved out here to America.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
33 years later, still going strong. It's amazing.
But, like, how often is that going to really happen?
Right. A whole movie. Oh, he spoke English. She only spoke Spanish. How did they speak to each other? It's love.
It's love.
It's love. It's el amor, right? And we
no
understand.
pressure for those kids, huh? My gosh, 30 and I'm not married. Hello.
Oh, goodbye. So that's the situation ship that Deanna and I are in trying to figure out what does it look like now. And especially when we're coaching clients, when we're doing counseling at other facilities, we're seeing and recognizing that relationships are just very dynamic. They're ever changing and they evolve in such different ways. So what does a romantic relationship look like nowadays? The most easiest form that we can communicate this to you guys is commitment, right? Commitment, and commitment can look very different, especially with the changes with marriages. We're seeing an increase in divorce rates, especially with this pandemic. The divorce rates have just, I mean, it's crazy how it is right now. But when you're looking at a romantic relationship, you really want to measure your commitment to it. You want to look at satisfaction. You want to look at your investments in a relationship. And you also want to consider alternatives, right? Not necessarily alternative people, but even alternative activities, right? I would prefer to hang out with the homies, right? With my sister, big chillin' right here. You get it. I would rather hang out with somebody else versus spending time with you. I would rather spend time with myself versus spending time with you. And that's what alternatives look like. So when you're looking at a relationship in all forms, whether they're friendships, whether it's a workship, right? Whether it's a romantic relationship, you got to look at your level of commitment.
And I think really that is the biggest point, because sometimes we go into relationships and we don't realize how much work being committed really is, and that is when I think it turns into a situationship, which I think we all have experienced at some point in our lives.
And if you haven't, you're probably happily married.
You're probably our
Hopefully.
parents, okay? So like there's that. But a situationship, the way I like to think about it is it's that like weird gray area of like we're talking, we're like doing our thing, we're kicking it, we're doing our thing, and we're not like exclusive. Like it's not just me and you and nobody else. So, and that time frame and that like part of the relationship is mando. Like it has to happen anyway, especially if you're on the way to a romantic relationship. But it becomes a little bit messy and like gaslighting starts to pop off when one person is a bit more committed than the other one. And even more, a layer underneath that is if one person's definition of commitment is different than the other person.
Ain't that the truth? So, how do we define what commitment level you're at or what your idea of commitment consists of? Talk about it. Talk about it. Ask the questions. Get uncomfortable in being uncomfortable. Excuse me. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and having these discussions. Because the biggest thing that you want to walk away is with the goal and the mindset of meeting your needs. And sometimes it takes being uncomfortable in that moment of getting clarity about where you lie in someone else's life.
And in terms of like asking for somebody to meet your needs, the part about that is like you have to know what your needs are, right? So a lot of successful relationships include an individual knowing what they want as their own person, and then being able to blend their life with somebody else who also knows what they want, they know who they are. And so there's clarity as an individual so that when you unite, you guys both are able to create a vision together.
So these are kind of the green flags, right? Signs of commitment, having open discussion and communication, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. These are the green flags that you want to look for when you're in a situationship looking to be in a relationship, or at least the possibility and opportunity for it to turn into something that is a relationship. Now let's talk about those red flags.
Really quick, before we
What?
jump into that, I just want to make this very clear. I think that it's really very valuable for you to know what you want before you choose to go into a situationship or you choose to go into a relationship, because relationships they allow you to be extremely vulnerable, and the most successful ones include a lot of vulnerability and a lot of safety within that. So if you go into a relationship and you go in there with the right mindset, you go in there knowing that you're looking for commitment or you're just looking for not commitment, and you go in there and you become more vulnerable with that individual, if they're not able to hold space for you, that's where a lot of hurt and a lot of pain starts to develop and starts to really grow. And then resentment. And then changing your outlook on love and the capabilities of people to fall in love.
There's levels to this.
There's definitely levels
There's
to it.
levels to this. But if anything, if you're looking at, kind of the early stages of a situationship, you're looking at the future, you're wanting to do future planning versus future tripping, right? Because that does happen when we're eager, we're excited, we have maybe some past traumas in relationships, and we are having some transference, right? You remind me of my ex, therefore you are my ex. We start making assumptions that this person is going to behave, think, or feel similar to somebody in the past. Then that can contribute to the red flags or the issues in moving forward into romantic relationships. There's levels to this.
Bringing that baggage.
Y'all got it.
So actually, that just makes me think of something. So I saw this video on Shade Room, and it was Khloe Kardashian, and she said that she has gone through a lot of relationships that were shit, and they caused her to really like essentially have a wall built up, and that the person who is meant to be with her is going to be strong enough to break down that wall. And my thoughts on it was, I don't think that it's anybody else's responsibility to break down those barriers for you because somebody else damaged it or damaged a perspective that you have of love.
Agreed.
I think that the only person that's responsible for breaking down any walls or any barriers is the person who made you build those walls up, and nobody else.
You are responsible for what you carry and what you do with the baggage. It is your responsibility, not anybody else's. If you place it on them, that is your fault. Okay? What's up?
Do you have baggage?
We all got a little baggage. We all got a couple of bags, right? Like Erica Badu. we are a little bag lady, right? With all
What's
the
one of your
purses that you
bags?
got. One of my bags?
Look at the shock in your face.
Look,
What's,
that's for him to know.
if you
Or
were
me
say,
to know and him to find out.
If you were to say what one of your bags are, what would it be?
Trust.
Lack thereof?
Developing. That's-
Elaborate on that.
That's a big one. Probably for episode number 2.
Give it to the people right now.
What? Trust. Trust is important. Trust doesn't come easy. You got to earn it. Just like respect. You got to put that time in.
So you think that you can gain more trust in a relationship with a man over time? Like, is it something that just kind of builds
Yeah.
over time for you?
Through action, acts of service, right? Doing things, showing it. Sometimes, being present is a form of building trust, right? Being patient is a form of building trust. Communication and getting comfortable with the discomfort is a way of developing trust. So it comes in different forms, shapes, and sizes, all that stuff. But I think, when I look back at the discussions I have with clients and the barriers in moving in relationships, oftentimes it comes down to trust issues, right? And so I think it's safe to say that a lot of people can relate to difficulties developing trust or even creating opportunities for trust to be developed, strengthened, and evolved with another person. And so, that's a bag we all carry, some bigger than others, right? So
I would say that thank you for asking, one of my bags would be, I like time. I need time. One of my love languages is for sure quality time. Because I just feel like when you're able to spend time with somebody, that is an opportunity for you to build a really strong connection. And I just feel like there's a lot of love when when somebody dedicates time to you, and in turn you dedicate that to them too. So then when there isn't that time going on, like if there's no calls, if there's no texts, there's no dates, that's when I think that there's just a lot of space for distrust to creep in, and then for you to not feel like you're somebody's priority.
For sure. So I think that ties into that next point of the red flags. which would be
Mhm.
lack of time, right? So if you're in so just to kind of specify situationships versus romantic relationships, there's a big disparity between the two. Commitment versus uncertainty, right? Situationships, there's quite a bit of uncertainty. So the red flags you want to look for are the issues developing trust, right? And then also that lack of time being spent together. Okay, especially let's talk about situationship woes. When you go on that good date, right? You have a great time. You're starting to do some future planning. I might invite this person out to the next thing. You know, I got something coming up in a couple weeks with the homies,
A
right?
little +1.
Well, plus one. It might look nice around my arm,
Little eye
right?
candy.
And then all of a sudden you feel that cold gust of wind. That's Casper. That's Casper.
Casper.
That's the depressing ghost.
That's
The situationship ghost. Letting you know
we've all
you've
seen
been
him.
ghosted.
Well, we've all not seen him, which is the point.
That is the point.
So,
They are invisible.
ghosting has to be. I remember a while ago, over a year ago, pre-COVID, I was talking to this guy. He was married. He's got kids, whatever. And pre-marriage, he was talking about ghosting and how he felt so just abandoned by women after they would just not respond. And he could not understand, like, why would you just not just respond? Tell me that you don't like me. But it is so much easier not to.
It's so much easier not to. And people do not like confrontation.
Mhm.
People will avoid all forms of confronting an issue or even just simply saying, I'm not interested.
Because
Right?
it's easier to say nothing.
It's easier to say nothing. It's easier to tap in your depressing ghost Casper. It's easier to tap Casper in to deal with that situationship.
And you can tap out. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that happens with ghosting. I think that people do it to what you said, avoid confrontation. They do it to also escape taking ownership of their own feelings. Because it's a lot easier for me to say nothing instead of me telling you I am not in it in the way that you would like me to be in it. But I do think that there's a level of like cowardness that goes into treating a relationship that way. Because the fact of the matter is, not everybody is for you. That's the purpose of dating, is to find out who is for you and absolutely find out who is not. Find out what you like, find out what you do not like, what fits your personality, what does not,
Heard that.
you know? So ghosting is just an easy way out, but
Mhm.
as we're stepping into 2021, let's all master that. Let's get empowered and step into our feelings and take ownership for how we take ownership for the relationships that we choose to keep and also the relationships that we choose to end.
That's right. And that's including friendships, that's including family, and that's including your partner or partners for some of y'all that are less traditional.
No judgment.
No judgment. This
We-
is for you too. This is for you too.
What do you think about individuals who say that they do not want commitment? Because not everybody does want that. Not everybody wants the marriage and kids and the white picket. You know what I mean? Like,
What I will encourage is let that be known up front. Let that be known up front. First, it's you figuring out what you want and then allowing that other person that you have opened the door for them to step into called your life, letting them know what you're about and what you're looking for and what your needs are. The biggest thing when doing couples counseling, when doing marital counseling, when working with people who've just started a relationship, that comes up all the time is I just don't know what they want. And my question is, did you ask?
or did they tell you and
or
you
did
didn't
they
hear
tell
it?
you? Right?
Because a lot of the time, people will tell you what they want or they'll show you what they need, but we may not have the lens to really see it.
Right. And even the words that come across, if you're finding that you're not understanding their message, ask for clarity. Oftentimes we fear asking for clarification, right? Or it's not what you thought you were going to hear. So ideally, you want somebody to tell you, I want you too. I want to be in a relationship with you. I want this long term. And sometimes we don't hear those words very clearly and specifically. So ask for that clarification. Hey, are you saying that you want commitment? Are you saying that you want to be with me? Are you saying that you want this to be long term? Because that's a pretty clear answer. This isn't a open-ended question. This is a yes no, right? And so if you're not hearing the answers that you expect, ask for that clarification. You are responsible for caring for you at the end of the day, not that other person. Remember, they're stepping into your life, right? You're opening the door for them to step in. So take that initiative and be clear about where you want to go with that individual.
And you know what the best part of being in a relationship is knowing that you can be completely open, you can be completely vulnerable, and like it's safe. Like it's a person who you can show up in, you know, looking raggedy, having a bad day. You know what I'm saying? And they love you and you feel it. Like it's just something that you can feel. Your gut feels it. Your body really tells you. Your body tells you everything that you need to know. Sometimes we don't pay enough attention to it, but your body will tell you what love feels like, and then your brain will make sense of it, right? Like it'll make that attachment. It'll make that association. So you know what love feels like and what a situationship that is not what you want feels like too. So, okay. So with that being said, let's get to the questions
Yes.
segment. So on the Instagram, my personal Instagram at Deanna Bledsoe, and also on Dorina's personal Instagram at Dorina Bledsoe, we were able to post some questions from some of the people that are on there, and they had questions about relationships. So we're going to answer the top 3 or 4 that I think are the most relatable to what we're all experiencing, especially, knee deep in a pandemic and some of the woes that we've experienced with that. So the first question, okay. If you're in a relationship or you're working toward being in a relationship with somebody, how do you communicate and ask for your needs to be met, but also not take it personally?
So, what I've encouraged and also what I've tried myself is write down your questions. And if you're going to have a discussion that's going to make you feel vulnerable and also make you feel kind of sensitive, then make sure that you plan this discussion ahead of time so that other person isn't blindsided. Because oftentimes, what happens is you have this idea in your mind of wanting to have a clear discussion. And when you get there, you're overwhelmed by all these emotions and you forget the questions, or it comes out in a way that makes it tough for the other person to answer clearly and also with not feeling overwhelmed by emotions. So set this up like a business meeting. We're talking about the longevity of you taking care of yourself. So set it up like a meeting. Hey, I want to talk to you about our relationship, our future. I want to get some clarity. I've had some things on my mind. Write down a list of your questions and then hear the answer with no expectation.
I think that was such a powerful part about what you said is if you let somebody know what to expect, it's going to allow them to walk into a situation with their guard down,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially going to get you what you want, a very honest conversation. So if you're like, hey, I know that it's been some tension around the house or we've had some tension between us, and I just want to sit down and talk with you about what's going on and figure out a way that we can get to a space that we're back good.
The likelihood of getting a response versus a reaction is really high. And that's why we plan it ahead of time. I want a response, not a reaction to a question, right?
And the part of taking it personal is so hard to do taking taking an individual's response or their reaction personal is something that I think is an ongoing, everlasting thing to triumph over, because people's reaction and the way they act says a lot more about how they feel about themselves more than how they feel about you. And that's a very difficult truth for us to take in because as human beings, we're very self centered. If it's not about us, like I kind of care a lot less, right? Like we just don't really care as much. So if you react away, it has to be about something that I've done or a way that it has to mean something about how you feel about me. And if you're able to get to a point to stop that thought and say, okay, he or she is reacting that way because of a thought or a truth they have in their head, or it has to do with maybe a past experience that they've had. But really, it doesn't have anything to do with you. You just happen to be on the receiving end of it. So remind yourself of that. If your partner is shutting down, if they're being really snappy towards you, if they're just not communicating, just know it really has a lot more to say about how they cope with confrontation more than how they feel about you.
That's right. That's right. So hopefully these were good answers for the first question. Let's tap into that next question.
Okay, so this is a question from somebody who is a really great individual and they're just a very calm soul. So I'm excited to go into this one. But essentially the question is, how do you transition from being single for such a long time? We're talking about a couple of years to going into a relationship with somebody. Like what do you do with that? Cuz now you're transitioning from only worrying about yourself, doing your own thing to now, okay, I got to take into consideration this other individual and how they feel.
So this is like there's so many levels to this type of question. The first thing that I always encourage is practice, right? We practiced being alone. We felt comfortable with it because it became a routine, right? It was something that was predictable. It was something that was controllable to us. And now we're allowing somebody else to step into our lives. So we have to practice being with another person. We have to practice sharing time. We have to practice sharing space. We have to practice being more emotionally available and more supportive to somebody else's needs. And so practice does not make perfect. It makes progress. So there will be barriers, there will be uh-ohs, there will be conflict, but as long as we have the intention to practice and to work through it, you're going to come on the other side successful.
And I think that there's parts of the relationship that change over time. Like when you first get into a new relationship and you realize like okay, there's a connection there. You start to spend a lot of time with that person. You're on the phone with them really all the time, texting, talking, FaceTiming, going on dates. Like you're giving them that attention. And what happens, which is a very natural progression of things, is you start to step into your normal everyday life. So we maybe spending a bit less time on the phone with them because we're working, or a bit less time on the phone with them because I'm gonna go out to dinner with my homegirls, or I'm gonna go see my family, or my homeboys, whatever. But there's transition. So I think a one way to think of it is like at the beginning, it's like we're in the love zone, like we're heavy with it. All the attention is for you. Then we transition once life becomes a bit more normal. Now we're going into our normal everyday relationships. And now I also have you. So there's a challenge of needing to spend time in all of those areas. Spend time with myself, spend time with work, my friends, and then also my new partner. And then there's challenges, like as you mentioned, that start to really creep up when we're in that space of normalcy. So just remember the communication is the biggest thing. Assert your needs, ask for what you need. You cannot assume that they know. And to always schedule that quality time together. That's where the connection is at. And that's how it's sustained.
That's right. Question number 2. Awesome question.
It was an awesome question. It was an
Who
awesome
asked
question.
it? Do you know?
I do. Somebody that I used to play basketball with. And funny enough, we were both roommates in college and we both were centers.
Ooh.
She was a beast. Gabby,
Ooh.
I love you.
Oh, shout out, Gabby.
But
Good question.
I think it was a good and just to say something personal, but that was me. Like I was single for 4 years, dibbled and dabbled in a ridiculous situationship, and then got out of that. Thank God, because then I stepped into one that it's just the most healthy relationship I've ever experienced.
Amazing man.
He's the best person ever.
Amazing individual.
He's the best person ever.
Biggest fan.
But with that time frame of being single, I think that I learned what I did not like, and in turn, I was able to find exactly what I liked. And there is with finding the person that you love and that fits you, there is a transition of like blending your worlds.
It's
Like
beautiful.
that's just gonna happen.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
Question número 3.
Okay. So, all right. The biggest struggles with being single during a pandemic, COVID, and then also having to go through medical issues or surgeries and then into recovery. This was one question which has a few layers.
Absolutely. We're talking about pandemic, we're talking about medical issues, we're talking about recovery. I mean, those are 3 heavy things and stressors to be carrying. So, all at once for an individual, what I would encourage is get to a place where you're feeling healthy, right? And so, what does your baseline look like? Because healthy is very personalized, it's very individualized, and it's tailored person to person, right? So, get to what your healthy or what your baseline looks like, and then start to practice being vulnerable, reaching out to other people, going out on dates, being flexible with certain types of routines or tasks that you're typically used to doing. If you're looking to have somebody in your life, then you have to make some changes to what your routine looks like and try some new things out.
So how would you encourage somebody to date while in COVID and also in recovery? Like, how do we, let's say, like, we're in a good headspace mentally, even post recovery, because going into recovery, we were solid, right? So, like, at that point, how do we meet new people? How do we meet new men, new women? How do we do it?
Look, I think everybody's still trying to figure that one out with COVID, okay? But the thing is be safe. Be safe. Be safe. Wear your mask. Whoever you chance stepping into your life or meeting, wear your mask. Take a chance. Try out the things that you're used to doing in terms of dating and try some new things out. Especially with COVID-19, it has forced a huge transformation on an individual level, on a two-person level, a group level. The world has been forced to change and transform. And so when you're trying new things out, definitely take some old techniques and skills that you've used with you, but also be flexible with the novelty and how things look nowadays, because it is going to be different dating.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think that one really great way is online dating.
Yeah, try
Like I
that.
know like some people are very traditional about it and but I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that that's definitely one solid way to meet new people, especially if you got to be at the crib. Like get online, meet men or meet women online. There's a lot of people on there. Don't be afraid to message somebody. If somebody looks interesting to you, you want to get to know them. If you can't meet in person, send them a message, schedule a FaceTime date, do it virtually. If we can't do it in the traditional fashion, at least right now, let's do it in a virtual setting. Step outside of your comfort zone,
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more.
And
Hmm.
then in the meantime, continue to recover, get your body healthy. So when it's time to, meet in person, you're popping and
Ooh,
you're ready.
ooh, and that's how you feel.
And that's how you
That's how
feel.
you feel. That's the important thing. That's how you feel.
Yes.
Okay? Because that new person coming around you, we don't look, this is the first time meeting you. I know I'm popping.
Yeah, like you're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I showed up.
I made it.
Our producer in the back is like, what?
What just happened?
What?
Did you guys
Okay.
get upset? We're talking to you.
Okay. Our final question. When do you bring up marriage?
Do, 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 do.
What I know for a fact
Crickets.
is like probably not the first date. You know what I mean? Like just go out the first.
I would disagree.
This is what I think. I think your first date is about, do I vibe with you? Is your energy
Facts.
compatible with my energy? Do I like you as a person? To even think about you in a way like lifelong. But on the first date, I'm not thinking about that. On my first date, I want to know you as a human being. Are you funny? Do you wash your hands before you go eat dinner?
Are you cleanly?
Are you cleanly? Like, are we talking about hygiene? Are you on time? Because I'm going to be late, mainly for the entrance. Nonetheless, I need to know what you're about. I don't need to have the trouble of like, do you want to get married?
That's not even, I don't even think that's the question. It's when do you bring up marriage? I didn't hear that as when do I bring up marriage to this person that I want to be with in a marital way. I heard it as when do you even just bring up the topic of marriage?
So when do you do it?
Whenever. If that's where you're at, if that's what your needs are, there isn't a bad time to bring up something that you want to know. You're not necessarily saying, when do you want to get married to me? Because that's a different type of question. I heard, when do you want to get married? Do you even want to have the talk? Are you emotionally available and capable of having this type of discussion? Is this something that's been on your mind? And kind of going from there. I hear it more as a brainstorm. Let's kind of jam right now and talk about this particular topic called marriage. Do you believe in it? Are you going to invest in it? Do you also believe in divorce? Have you been married before? Right?
Right? Okay,
Right?
you know what I will say is I think that those type of questions become more pertinent depending on the age range that we're at. Because as we're getting older, more people are either married, doing some shady stuff, divorced, or just never been, right? But like if you're younger in your 20s, like it's likely that you're not really,
It
you know.
depends. It
Some people do
depends.
get married young.
It depends. I mean, like I have a client who's in her early 20s with her firstborn, married, has been married for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's pretty quick, but it's not for some people.
Yeah.
Marriage is like, I'll ask teenagers that I'm working with, and they'll bring up, what's a goal that you have? What's a long-term goal? To get married and have kids? What? All I want to do was go to college
Yeah.
and hit 21.
Yeah. I mean, I
Right?
guess
It's just different.
ultimately you just got to feel it out. You got to
Yeah.
know. I mean,
When do you bring up marriage? When it's
you're ready.
pertinent to you. If that's important to you, there isn't a bad time to bring it up, right? The only thing is you don't want to be in a relationship 3 years later and then have the discussion about marriage. That I would say is a bad time to bring it up. It's a little bit late, right?
Yeah.
Because 3 years into it, if you still haven't had the discussion, chances are that's not a priority to your partner.
So, okay, I like that. So then that makes me think of a good like benchmark is if you don't bring it up in the beginning, I think at least within the first, I would say like around date 5. You know what I mean? Like what do you want to do long term? If you're an individual who marriage is important to them, around date 5, 6, kick that into gear. Like, is that something you're interested in? Because at that point, you're invested enough to know if you like the person, and also not invested enough to know if they're not interested in the same end goal as you, maybe not with you, but just as a person. Like, let's go this way. There's no point in setting yourself up for failure and
What-
being 3 years in.
Right, exactly. What I will encourage, because this one is this type of question is really going to be based off of the listener, right? So the best thing that Deanna and I can tell you is experiment with it. Try it out. Try it out on date 1. Try it out on date 5. Try it with a different person. Try asking that question to a friend, right? See how it goes for you. And then at that point, you'll start developing an understanding of where you stand with marriage, of your thoughts and the importance to it. Or even if marriage isn't an option, even just being in a committed relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because we put a lot of weight in marriage, and like we said at the beginning of the discussion, was relationships look so different nowadays, right? Marriage really isn't a priority for some individuals, but being in a committed relationship is, right? And I say that with knowing friends, having family members that aren't married, but they sure are happy in a committed relationship, right? So it's from person to person. Ooh, what a good
We
discussion.
could talk about relationships all day.
All
I love
day.
love.
I
I
love,
love. I'm the type that will watch love movies all day
oh my
and
gosh.
cry.
And cry.
I'll cry.
Emphasize the crying.
But I don't cry at big events. You know what I mean?
But
Like,
she'll call me.
but I
But she'll call me. What happened, Deanna? I'm just watching this movie. Are you kidding
Yes.
me?
I watched all through Pretty Woman a couple weeks ago. The first time I watched it, and it was amazing.
She'll watch a video of a puppy.
Oh my gosh,
And
when I
that
need a good
basic
cry.
emotion of love, that bond with the animal,
Mm.
man, it's beautiful. It actually is. I love hearing stories about puppies. But anyways, love, one thing I will say is love is a very complex emotion, and it needs to be worked on. Love is complex because it is not experienced with every individual, right?
Mm.
Some people will say they've never experienced love, and that makes it even more difficult to produce and connect with that type of emotion. So, one thing I will say is be around people that you can share love with, even if it's on a friendship level, a family level, so that you know what that feeling is when you meet that person that you want to love the rest of your life. Okay?
And create that love within yourself first.
Oof.
Create that love within yourself first, and all of the pieces will fall into place.
Yes, they will.
Once you know what it feels like, once you're able to give that to you, it's so much easier to give it to somebody else who deserves it and to know who doesn't.
So, if you're looking to work on self love, what Deanna and I are going to encourage is tapping into this journal, Empowered as Fuck. Okay?
Yes.
Man,
You guys, we've been putting our work into it. We think you guys are going to love it.
we know you
We-
will.
We know you guys will.
Mhm.
If you guys have questions about it, please do not hesitate. Go to our Instagram or our Facebook. Our Instagram is at Empower El Mundo. On Facebook, we're Bledsoe Empower. So do not hesitate. We're posting about it on there. If you have questions about it, just comment it, DM us. We also are going to be posting this video on YouTube. So comment below. Let us know what's good. We have answers.
That's right. Yes, we do. So follow, comment, like, share, all that good stuff. Keep on tapping in and tuning in with Deanna and I through Empower El Mundo y también at Bledsoe Empower. And with that being said, live empowered.
And be empowered.
Yes. You gotta live empowered to
And
be
be
empowered.
You
gotta
got the
live
background
empowered
though.
to be empowered. Hit
Little
that
acapella.
music.